Hi everyone, we're continuing with stratified epithelial cells, and the ones we're up to now are stratified cuboidal epithelium. And the place we're going to look for this is in a salivary gland. A salivary gland's function is to secrete saliva for so many things. Saliva is involved in early digestion, especially of proteins and carbohydrates. It is involved in protection. It provides the environment for a healthy microbiome in your mouth. It protects you from certain chemicals and acids. It protects your mucosal cells and your cells in your mouth from abrasion, and it protects your teeth from dehydration. So saliva is absolutely critical, and the tissue that provides it is highly specialized to construct this saliva, which is full of enzymes and water, and secrete it. So if you think about a cell that would construct a complicated solution and secrete it, you would come up with a tissue form that would probably be a cube to hold the volume of this solution, and it would be stratified for protection because you get a lot of wear and tear in your mouth. So it would need several layers of that protection. The apical and the medial layers of this stratified tissue in salivary glands are going to be cuboidal cells, and you see them here as nice little squares in at least two layers there. So therefore you can think about function of the gland and function of this tissue that surrounds the duct. Here is the environment, the duct here that moves the saliva into your mouth. I hope that helps you with that stratified cuboidal epithelium. And we have stratified columnar epithelium, the columns. This is going to be for the male urethra. These are not easy to find in the body, but in the male urethra there is stratified columnar epithelium. If you think about the function of the male urethra, it is to secrete urine and also to secrete semen. So this tissue function for the columnar epithelium is going to be protective as well as secretory in nature. If you think about that, then you start to think about what tissue form could do both of those things, protecting and secreting, and you come to a stratified cell for protection, and you come to columnar on the apical area because you want columns for the elongation of the urethra during urination. So you can come to a columnar stratified epithelium in the urethra that would be good for holding volume in that column and secreting it, but also good at stretching out when that urethra needs to stretch during urination. So there's an example of form follow function for stratified columnar epithelium. And last but not least, in the stratified area, we can look into transitional epithelium. And transitional epithelium represents two different stratified types, squamous and cuboidal. Let's think about where this might be found. Where would you need two types of cells for an epithelial cell? You would need that in the apical and medial areas in an area that has a lot of demands on it. And in this case, the organ is the ureter, which of course needs a lot of stretching, and the bladder, which needs an enormous amount of stretching, and the urethra in men as well. So you will see the columnar epithelium in male urethras, but you will also see this transitional epithelium, which has a lot to do with stretching and contracting. So if a tissue needs to both stretch and contract, it may need two different types of cells in the apical and medial layers. In this case, this is looking at dome or squamous cells on the apical layer, good for lateral stretching. And then below it, you might find cuboidal cells that can give a lot of structural stability to this area like a bladder, which has an enormous capacity to stretch. So you might need some structural capacity down there that would lead to the medial cells being cuboidal. On the other hand, the basal cells down at the base of this tissue can be columnar, and that would lend to the vertical stretch, the same thing we saw in the male urethra. So here's a brilliant combination of putting them all together in what's called a transitional epithelium. When you see dome cells on the apex, cuboidal cells in the medial, and columnar cells at the base, you're thinking there is a lot going on in this tissue, and you'd be right to think about bladder tissue for that. Thanks, and I'll see you on connective tissue next.